Eight things you might not realize are taxable. Everyone knows that wages are taxed by the federal government, but Uncle Sam has a far-reaching definition of taxable income. It covers numerous types of earnings that many people don't realize are subject to federal income taxes. What follows are several examples of taxable income that may come as a surprise. Generally, people pay federal income taxes on their benefits if they have other substantial income, such as wages, interest, or dividends, as we detail in. If Social Security benefits are your sole source of retirement income, or you have little income in addition to your benefits likely would not be subject to federal income taxes. As of January, the average monthly benefit for retired workers was for a total of $17,568 per year. That's well below when we named Anchorage, Alaska, among the best domestic retirement destinations of the year, we mentioned the Alaska Permanent Fund. Yes, it may be cold, and, yes, it may be expensive. But dividends for adults, and sometimes dividends for children, are subject to federal income taxes, notes they. Fail to report Alaska Permanent Fund dividends on your federal tax return, and you may be hit with a negligence penalty or other sanctions, the state agency warns. The IRS expects people to report income from bribes on their tax returns. If you receive a bribe, include it in your income, the federal agency plainly states in. Even criminals are expected to report their income, including income from illegal activities, such as earnings from selling illegal drugs. Don't scoff at the thought. Remember, for divorce and separation agreements executed before 2019, alimony is generally deductible by the payer, and the recipient generally must report it as income. This changes for agreements executed after December 31, 2018, though. For changes to if you were fortunate enough to convince someone to cancel a debt in 2018, you probably felt a sense of relief. The problem is, generally, if a debt is forgiven, unless it's intended as a gift, the IRS expects you to count the canceled amount as income when you file your federal taxes. The euphoria you feel when you win at gambling may quickly fade once you realize that the IRS expects you to pay taxes on your windfall. And this isn't only about what happens in casinos. Winnings from lottery. You can, however, use gambling losses that occurred during the same year as your winnings to offset your tax burden. You cannot avoid paying taxes by accepting goods or services instead of cash for your work. Generally, an example from the IRS. You're a self-employed attorney who performs legal services for a client, a small corporation. The corporation
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.